So careful.
Yeah.
Here he comes.
He's lactose intolerant too.
Oop, I just zapped you.
Dog
All right,
is
we
very
are
lactose intolerant. Please be careful.
Just like Dad.
just like that. Oh yeah, it runs in the genes.
Oh yeah, of course.
All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to the Alfalfa podcast.
Heyo.
What's up? We are for entrepreneur and investor friends seeking the edge in money and meeting. We are Armand Asadi, Eric Johansson. I'm Nick Urbani. Steven Cesaro has broken his perfect attendance record, and he is not with us today. He will be missed.
Perfect, Steven.
Maybe we'll share a tweet or two of his. Maybe.
I like that idea.
Maybe.
I
What's
have a
up?
hologram of him ready
Yeah, we
for
need the
later,
hologram.
actually. Yeah.
What's up to everyone in the chat? Curious
Chat's
Ponderings, Hookem, Calcium, Rectum, Tunsky, Pilgart,
I
Eric
love
P.
that the community shows up live.
Adams
for this.
in there.
Makes it so fun.
Yeah, I got a full house in the chat tonight. That's fun. If you want, well, let's see. Today we're going to cover a little Coinbase update. Maybe like a little mini victory lap. Like a just around the room victory lap, not like a
It's early.
full blownzy. It's a little
early.
early. Talk about GPTC and some ETF news, how we're going to play it, some ponderings about it. We're going to talk NVIDIA, maybe a little AI update from our in-house AI entrepreneur. That would be appreciated. I don't know if I asked you that before this, so on the fly, sir. And then we're going to discuss something we're calling the friendship recession a little later.
It's going to be a great talk, I think.
Good branding.
Yeah, I like it.
That's your branding, right?
I think so.
Okay. Good.
Maybe.
Someone
I don't know.
trademark
I like to rip and duplicate a lot, so it
Yeah.
could just be from the internet in general. All right. Well, support the pod if you like. Donate to the pod. If you do, your comment will come out on the screen. Donations $9 or over will show live up on the live stream.
Apparently, if you put certain words in the comments,
They get bleeped
like,
out automatically.
Rectum did, they get bleeped out.
Yeah. So go to.
I would like to show the full version of your comment. It's not me.
Yeah. So go to streamlabs.com/alfalfapod. The link and all the links are at alfalfapod.com, and the links are in the show notes in YouTube and in your podcast player. Another way you could support the pod is share an episode, your favorite episode, with a friend. Maybe the previous episode where, I don't know, one of you guys were talking about buying some coin calls, some leaps. We'll talk about that a little later today. All right.
I have something too.
Yeah, you got something?
I don't think people realize that obviously we do this live and we tell people to come live. But if you want early access to the episode, just go to YouTube, because as soon as we finish recording and we do this live, it's up. The recording is up on our YouTube channel at alfalfapod.com. So yeah, if you want it, because we record on Wednesday night, you're not getting the episode if you're listening until Friday morning. So early access is YouTube.
Yeah, good call. Good call. All right. Well, it was Steven's turn to bring the drinks, and he left us
You think it was a coincidence?
without sustenance. So we're tapping the bar today.
Yeah, you got the Japanese Harmony Hibiki.
Yeah, which one is that?
I love this stuff. Really nice bang for the old buck.
I'm drinking the other one.
And then we've got this. I was just telling Eric, like, how in demand and crazy the bourbon market is. This is Weller Full Proof. I think retail price used to be able to get this stuff for under $100. But if you try to buy it right now, it's going for like $300-400 just because of how crazy the bourbon market is. So
I had someone today.
it's
I was on
kinda
the phone
crazy.
with them, friend of ours, listens to the pod, poo-pooing our Weller's bourbon selection.
What?
Yeah,
This
poo-pooing
bad?
it.
Who's
He's going to come in
poo-poo-
with Rex. He's going to come in with some recommendations.
Well, please upgrade me,
Yeah.
sir. I mean,
Yeah.
if we can get better than that, I'd love to.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good bourbon, man. I think it's
Well, it's
excellent.
114 proof.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's good. It's going to do the job.
It's like drinking gasoline, brother. Okay, let's shout out to our sponsor. Thank you, ZBiotics. Go to zbiotics.com/alfalfa to get 15% off. I don't know, the way I look at it, for the price of one drink, you can make sure all the other drinks don't make you feel like shit in the morning. Plenty of stories about using ZBiotics in the Discord.
I have a story.
I will allude to you.
Can you please let me have my
I will.
Zbiotic story
I will.
this week? Okay.
Lots of stories in the Discord. So I don't know if you guys have tried it. Let us know either in the chat and YouTube or in the Discord how it's worked for you and how you like it. Let's see, Jordan, can you drop a few links? Spam the chat a little bit. And yeah, Armand and you and I both learned the hard lesson. I don't know. We fucking blew it and did not have our Z-Biotics this weekend.
Friend was in town Saturday night, bringing the heat. Let's go out, boys. Kind of energy.
Yeah.
Didn't have the Z-Biotics with us. Yeah, I'm still like hurting and sad, and I'm frustrated.
You're, like,
from this
abused
weekend
emotionally.
Yeah, I really was.
Yeah, you
Like,
don't want to talk about
It
it.
was one of the worst. Okay, so we've been on Z-Biotics now. Let me cut to the core, as we say. Let me get to the not bury the lead. I will never ever drink more than 2 drinks again without Z-Biotics the rest of my life.
That
Rest
bad,
of your
huh?
life.
I'm done. Why would I? Never again. Hell no. Dude, my Sunday was one of the worst days I've had this year.
Okay,
I was
so
anxiety level 10, confused, nauseous, just absolutely dread. And then I got to wake up and be a dad. Dude,
Yeah.
never again. It's either that or give up alcohol.
no days off. So how long did you guys stay out? Because I left way.
Eric wants the other side of the story. We're
I
like,
left-
what happened that night?
I left at like 6 p.m., 7 p.m.
We were out till 2.
Yeah, well, Jesus. I mean,
Yeah.
you should have
Pretty
probably
sure- pretty
doubled
sure
down
at
on
least one.
Z-Biotics.
Pretty sure at least one. But what happened for me was like I woke up and I had that nauseousness that I haven't experienced in months since I've been having Z-Biotics when I drink for the last couple
Yeah,
months.
Z-Biotics
ever since we discovered
eliminates
them.
that nauseousness.
All that nauseousness, all that like nasty. I felt like I was going to throw up. I couldn't move. I had a headache, of course, all those things. But the worst part is that it just did not go away. It was all day long. I had to take a double dose of Aleve. I had to do all these things. Nothing was making it better. I went to bed that night at like 8 o'clock to try to just like, I need to just go to sleep and forget about today. I couldn't sleep. The next night after drinking, I couldn't sleep. Like I literally was
Damn.
shaking all night. And I was like, dude, first of all, maybe just need to get off alcohol because this stuff is clearly poisonous.
Well, do you think that it had anything to do with what we did? Because like we drank all day at the pool.
Mm-hmm.
We went in the sauna 3 times while we were drinking.
That was
does
dumb. That was dumb.
Does that
Not
have any
advised.
impact?
No, don't worry about that part.
Because I feel like I was sweating out the toxins. I woke up fresh. I mean, it was the 3.
I don't think it was that
saunas
part.
for
yeah,
me.
I liked the sauna part.
Yeah.
Anyway, never again. New rule. Anything more than 2 drinks, I'm having my Z-Biotics.
All right. So, zbiotics.com/alfalfa for the discount code. Use alfalfa at the checkout. Appreciate it, Z-Biotics.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't think they're shipping to most countries internationally
Oh, I know.
outside
We
the
need to-
U.S. But we're going to talk to Zach. We're going to talk to the founder about that. We're going to talk about a lot of things, and we'll definitely be talking about international expansion opportunities, retail. Nick might want to kind of have a sidebar
Yeah,
about
a little
some retail distribution since you have experience in that and all kinds of things.
We have all
So,
kinds of sidebars. We want to
yeah.
get our beak wet.
Yes, yes.
All right, cool. So let's go into the first topic, little Coinbase update. So we'll talk about GBTC in a second, but obviously the court kind of turned down, or I guess gave GBTC a win against the SEC, and that popped all crypto, definitely popped Coinbase. I thought the most interesting thing was Bitcoin, ETH up, what, like 8-ish%? Coinbase up 15%.
Our thesis is intact.
Yeah, I think so, because I guess the thesis was that Coinbase in a bull run would go up more than, say, ETH.
Yeah.
And do you think that's primarily because it's just the low valuation that Coinbase has in general, or do you
Isn't
think
that
it's just
too
prone?
soon to tell? Also,
I think it's
guys?
too
Like,
soon to tell.
and
Also,
way too short of a.
but I also think that like this
Time horizon?
this particular idiosyncratic piece of news benefited Coinbase, more so than like ETH, right?
Because they're
Right.
potentially the custody of a handful
Of
of
the
these.
ETF, right?
Yeah. So I think for that reason, Coinbase went higher. But I think Armand's right. It's like too soon to tell if that thesis is
Yeah,
going to be correct.
And we also talked about a specific type of call option. We talked about LEAP, so expires December 2025.
843 days away.
Yep. And we were talking about the what was it, the $100-ish strike price. Looked like yesterday it was up 40%, probably retraced a little bit today. But yeah, I know
It's quite a volatile
everyone dipped their
asset,
toes in, so nice little pump.
It's very volatile. Like if you bought when I bought but not enough, and we talked about it on the pod, we were talking about it around the $55 to $60 range.
Would have been a good time to buy those leaps.
Would have been a good time, but also we went up to 100 plus. Then we went back down to the 70s. I think we went even lower than that. and now we're back up to the 80s. So it's like quite a volatile asset, and it will continue to be, in my opinion.
I like the discussion we had last week because it was a little bit of charts, understanding like on the higher time frames, longer time frames, and the shorter time frames, but also like a little fundamental analysis kind of converged on this. Eric, in the past, some of the lessons I've learned from holding options is that you're not necessarily looking for like the stock to hit a certain price, but you want a large amount of volatility, and that's when the options are worth the most. So I don't know, in a day like yesterday, when you see the option up 40%, you plan to hold this thing for a couple of years, maybe.
Well, I think you're right in like a general sense, but like when I buy these leaps, like 843 days away, like one thing you notice is that like there was much more volatility happening on like the shorter dated options. So I think like I think Steven bought like the November expiries, like
Right.
So for those, like if I was Steven, I'd be looking to like take profits
You'd sell
now.
those, yeah.
I'd sell those now, but like when we're talking about these long dated ones, like I don't think that we're really playing this like volatility game in the same way. So like I'm actually playing the
price.
price against the strike. So like I don't want to sell these leaps even if they're up 30% now or whatever. I want to hold them.
Yeah, and so you've told me before when I missed out on, I think it was a different call option, but you were like, maybe it was actually Coinbase just a while ago. You were like, well, don't buy it today. Wait for the implied volatility to decrease. So is that kind of like similar advice that you'd give to me? Like,
I think so, but we're talking about something that's like so far away, and like, Coinbase, like Armand said, is so volatile that, a strike price of 100 is kind of like owning the common just with leverage. So like, I'm okay buying here. I didn't buy more today. I want to buy more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to let the market digest this like price increase, but I'm not going to wait that long.
How long does digestion take? A week?
I don't know. Like
I was literally thinking about it.
Like,
I don't know. I was like, okay, I'm not buying today.
I wasn't going to buy yesterday, and I'm not going to buy today. I didn't buy today. But
so
like,
mad because I texted. I was like looking at it all
yeah,
Monday.
Yeah. But like,
and
I think I will look to buy soon. So
yeah, sub 80.
I'll even add 80 or even 80 right now. I'll add it right now. I don't care.
so I think the hopeful price target we're looking for is like somewhere between like 300 and 500 in an eventual, if a bull market does occur.
Yeah.
Ideally.
That's like the game that I'm playing. You
Yeah.
know, like I'm willing to just like lose this money. These are like lotto tickets to me, but I think probability is pretty high that the lotto tickets hit.
Yeah, we'll see how this thesis plays out. If like Coinbase ends up having like a larger beta than ETH or Bitcoin, it seems kind of odd that it would. You're talking about like a TradFi asset, stonk, and it reacts more erratic than the underlying coins. But you're right. I mean, it had particular exposure to the ETF trade.
I wonder how Nvidia stacks up against crypto.
In terms of what? Volatility?
No, in terms
yeah.
of just like over the last, call it 5 years.
Oh, it's way better.
Oh, I mean, in like
yeah,
10 years ago, it was like a $4 stock.
Nvidia's at all-time highs now, and
Yeah.
crypto's down 50%.
Yeah, but I'm wondering, like, overall in the last 5, like, the gain of crypto has, like, been 100%, call it, like, year over year.
True.
So just want to see it over, like, a long term.
I think Nvidia still wins.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it depends if you go back maybe like 7 years.
Yeah.
Probably crypto wins.
Okay.
Yeah, it goes back 2016 for sure.
But the difference is, like, it's a lot easier to pick Bitcoin or Ethereum than it is to pick the stock, and in this case, like, we're saying
You
the
fuckers
stock
picked
could
it.
be Coinbase.
Well, I did, but like
Yeah.
my thesis for Nvidia was completely different. It wasn't an AI based thesis. It was like,
at all.
No,
I didn't think
like,
about it that way at all.
It was just having like these GPUs that are necessary for like high end computing, but AI
Yeah.
didn't come into play. That's what sent it, and it's sort
They
of like
knew, it appears, what they were
Yeah.
doing, and they were front running what they saw the eventual revolution in AI, and that GPUs, not CPUs, would be at the forefront of this. And so it's very interesting. So they clearly were at the forefront of it.
All right, you guys want to talk a little GBTC?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the DC Court of Appeals ordered the SEC to vacate their decision, their denial of GBTC's ETF conversion. So I think it was like June of last year. They applied, they got denied. They immediately filed a lawsuit. So it's been well over a year this court process has taken. And it was a unanimous decision. So all 3 judges, there's 3 judges on an appeals court, their backgrounds were pretty, widespread, and they came with unanimous decision. And they specifically got the SEC on the idea that like you have to treat similar cases alike. You have to decide, those cases in a very similar way. And they said that they weren't, and that their decisions were arbitrary and capricious. So those are pretty. I feel like pretty strong words from a court order and a judgment on SEC. So they're filing blanks, and if you remember, like GBTC operates like a closed-end fund. So you can add more to it, but you can't take out. So there's no market mechanism to make sure that GBTC trades at the underlying value, the Bitcoins it holds. And GBTC and the SEC's decision to not let it convert to an ETF is kind of what caused our fucking 2022 mayhem. This GBTC arbitrage play was going on, and they were levering up to play this. And if you don't remember, the way it worked is like you buy some Bitcoins, send it into GBTC, you get shares, you have a 6-month lockup. But when GBTC was trading at a 30% premium to the underlying coins it held, there was a pretty nice arbitrage play. But there was a 6 months delay before you could sell those shares. So hedge funds like 3 Hours Capital were playing this in size and leveraging to do it. And I think started 2021, this discount started narrowing. Or the premium started
premium
narrowing.
was narrowing into a discount.
And then it turned into a discount, and a lot of things blew up. And I bet you could probably even trace FTX back to that arbitrage play.
Yeah, and I don't know where you want to take this conversation, but what I'm thinking is like, what's the parent company called? DCG.
Yeah,
DCG seems to be in like a world of hurt still from that episode. Like 3 Arrows Capital, I think they have like $1 billion liability outstanding.
3 Arrows was borrowing from Genesis, which is another like subsidiary of DCG. So DCG's in the hole quite a bit, and also Genesis owes money to Gemini, I believe. They're creditors of Genesis as well. So what do you do with your GBT shares? Because I own some in a retirement account.
Same.
So we're at 18% discount to NAV.
And that to me sounds fairly reasonable. Like after this court ruling, it would seem that our probability has improved of like an ability to convert to Bitcoin. So like that's compelling, but there still looms a lot of risk. And like one question that I would have, I wish Stephen was here for this. It's like, this court ruling doesn't necessarily mean that the SEC has to change their decision.
Right.
They just have to come up with a different rationale for why they decided.
If they want to deny it. So the judge didn't say you have to approve this. You just said you have to reconsider it, and you can't use this same reason.
So I read that document, and I hate reading legalese, but this one was kind of like kind of using normal verbiage. But one thing I noticed was like they were using the approval of the futures as the proxy when they denied grayscales.
Yeah, like
they were like
these were the two cases they were measuring them.
So they approved the futures, but they denied this one, and like those to me aren't apples to apples. So I'm a little concerned still.
I think it was in specifically about the price action. Like
there was like a 99% correlation.
Yeah, 99.9% correlation, and they were just like, you can't avoid math and facts in your analysis, which the SEC was doing, and didn't provide a reason as to why they were worried about the spot Bitcoin price being manipulated when the futures market is just fine to approve. So the case still remains that the parent of GBTC is potentially insolvent, and one of the main cash flow streams that they're relying on is this 2% rake they're getting from GBTC remaining a trust and not turning into an ETF.
It'd be nice to pay back $1 billion liability, like having a bunch of cash flows coming in on their AUM.
Yeah.
When that gets eliminated, because like let's just say a spot ETF gets approved, well then so does BlackRock, so does everybody else. Like what I'm going to look to do first thing is just like get out of GBTC and get into like BlackRock's version.
Yeah, so there's two things at play. One, it is Grayscale is not financially incentivized to convert it to an ETF. I mean, that cash flow stream would go down by like minimum 75% to maybe like 0.5%. So that's a little scary. I think they could do some delaying and fiddling, and I don't know, to make sure that cash flow stream keeps going on. And then second, there is still some percent chance that the ETF doesn't get approved, or the SEC finds another reason to deny it. So you have to take that account into the discount. So I don't know. It's at 18% now.
But on your number one point, they want to, don't they? They want.
They say they want to.
They say they want to just to get it approved to have the what?
I mean, if they get the ETF, they will already have assets under management. They may likely be, one of the leaders because they've been doing it for so long.
Yeah, I guess you could say that like it opens the floodgates to allow like normies to invest in Bitcoin, and that would actually increase their cash flows just because like even if it's like a lower margin business, like they would just have way more assets under management.
And like that's if every other player has an ETF, a spot ETF, isn't that the long-term inevitable choice that they need to make to have one as well?
They do, but that doesn't work. That works against them in terms of their like company cash flows.
Because right now they're the only game in town.
But in the short term, once I'm saying these spot ETFs exist, wouldn't they be compelled?
Oh, it's a guarantee. Yeah.
Okay. Not only were they compelled to do it because their investors want them to do it, but just like normal market competition,
they would lose that edge that they have as being
who knows? They might go down from 2% to 0.5%,
lower
something
margin
like that.
business, but then be able to compete with the others.
Yeah, they won't be able to. I mean, at some point, there'll be fee compression just because everyone's going to have very similar products.
But like, that.
I guess anybody who's like buying GBTC or ETHE, they're playing this discount narrowing game. It's not really like, I think like eventually what you want to do is get out of that and either get into like spot Bitcoin ETH or get into like BlackRock's version of those.
Yeah, and I guess my point of saying all these probabilities of it possibly not going through the SEC, coming up with another reason to deny it, is that 18% might be good enough to actually just sell it. Like the market just priced in a significant improved probability that this will turn into an ETF, and they're going to continue to take their 2% rake. You have to take into account and how long will that take, and will it be the first? So I don't know. I think there's a good reason for, if you're worried about DCG's insolvency, that this is like a good enough time to maybe swap out of it. Obviously, if the ETF does get approved, that discount will close.
Like, just to be clear, on your GBTC that you're holding in your retirement accounts, I'm
thinking about it, like thinking about just selling it with like
at the 18% discount.
Yeah, like
I am also thinking about it, but I'm not gonna do it. Like I'm getting greedy on that last little
Here's
squeeze.
what I won't do. I won't buy more to play that discount game and try to get that 20% back, because I don't think it'll actually close to like a 0% discount.
Well, I mean, eventually if it turns into a spot ETF, then you could just swap it for the Bitcoin.
I don't know. I think you have to know when the timeline is, because if it's 9 months out, like I said, they're taking their 2% rake along the whole time. So maybe it gets to 99% of NAV or whatever. But I also want to talk about a similar. So we saw some market action: Bitcoin up, ETH up, everyone getting stoked. But it wasn't not too long ago we had another legal decision that was the XRP decision.
Well, wait a second. Are you guys stoked on this at all? Like, I love the nuance here, and I didn't. Yeah. It's funny. Like, I just took a couple headlines and a couple articles, and now I get to come here and learn all this stuff. It's great. But like, so
these are the seeds.
What is it like?
I'm absolutely stoked, and I think like, let's just go back to something Steven said like a month ago or 2 months ago, however long ago. He's like, the signal is BlackRock.
Yeah.
I think that is true.
And do you think that that's what enabled this to become, like, to get overturned?
I think that is what will sort of be the thing that gets the SEC to like back off, like the courts ruled this thing and the SEC would probably continue fighting it. But the fact that Larry Fink and BlackRock behind it, just being like, really? Like, I think for that reason, all of this is now just like bullish news that you want to be buying. Like
Yep.
I want to be buying. So,
But
I started.
I want to temper it because like if you just read those headlines, which probably most people did, you
Yeah.
probably saw all the hype boys on Twitter talking about going to change the game. You are under allocated right now,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
maybe you actually are. I mean, we've talked about we started. I'm
for
at
sure am.
20%. I think you should be, but don't get overextended because if you guys remember, just like 45 days ago, that XRP decision happened. We pumped, and 30 days later, we just continued to go down.
Yeah.
And if you remember, just like a week or two ago, we had that massive down move because it was all those idiots who went leverage long because of that legal decision getting liquidated. So like what I'm saying is this is good. We're sowing the seeds.
So we'll
but
get like
don't-
this nice little run
yeah,
from
but this is not the time to go get overextended and just you see this court case and be like, I'm going to go leverage long. Like I'm going to shove 100% in because of this one thing. I think,
So then what is the indicator that you would look for to,
I mean,
do you even shove that? I don't think that's your style to shove like such a larger amount
I mean, like,
anyway, right? But
here's
like,
what I'm thinking. Like seasonality is not your friend right now,
Not
both
at all.
in in stock markets and the crypto market.
September's the worst.
It's supposed-
month
it's always
in
the worst,
stonks,
right?
Yeah.
The worst month for Bitcoin too.
I can't wait to thank you because I felt bad about the Coinbase thing.
No, and
Hope
like
September is
and
terrible.
liquidity is not our friend right now. And if you guys are looking for a cue on liquidity, like we've talked about, Darius Steele has signals, but also if you follow Cross Border Capital on Twitter, Michael Howell, he's been probably the more accurate of the two in terms of like global liquidity, and he's shown like downward impulses in liquidity.
And what's the dollar doing?
The dollar actually, funny enough, it went down yesterday because those the JOLTS data, the job openings data, surprised lower. So there was less job openings, and the dollar reacted downwards. So we're back in that mode where like bad news is good news because that means that the Fed may not keep raising rates or may not keep them higher for longer. And that makes me go back to the conversation we had just last week where I was telling Steven, I'm in this mental loop in which, the Fed will only provide liquidity and cut rates if there's a crisis. Only after there's a crisis.
I got a new thought on the Fed moves, actually.
What do you think? Because
well,
I'm waiting for the crisis.
I haven't sussed it out, so we're going to do it here live on air.
Okay.
But my thought is that like the Fed is not going to want to like reverse positioning on rates, right? Rates is kind of like their like tent pole thing. It's like we're going to just keep those tight. What I think I'm seeing now is like effective mortgage rates are so low. Like people that like locked in 30-year fixed at like 3% or whatever.
The effective is like 3.6 or something.
3.6% effective when like you want to go get a mortgage right now. It's at 7-8%, whatever. That gap is so wide that
Who's
it's like
going to sell their home right now?
no, you've like totally gummed up the housing market.
Yeah.
I think what the Fed will likely do, instead of touching rates at all, they'll keep rates high. What they'll do is they'll start buying mortgages again, and that would be like a liquidity injection.
I like, yeah. You're saying there's other tools they have. They don't just have to touch rates. They can move the
So
liquidity.
they won't be influenced in that way.
Like they'll just be able to maintain their narrative. Like, no, we're keeping like rates tight, but then they're going to sort of manipulate again. And
they did that. They used a different tool in March when banks had issues, right?
well, they didn't want to raise rates, back in 2021, and they were selling mortgages. I think they're just going to reverse course.
Were they selling or were they just letting them roll off?
They were letting them roll off.
Let's get Steven's voice in here. I got a tweet from him that's kind of along these lines.
Cool.
Steven says, I continue to maintain that the writing is on the wall. Crypto is bullish. Years from now, we have spot ETFs, regulatory clarity, and mainstream adoption. In the meantime, you can still be shocked at how the market chews you up and shakes you out, even after the most seemingly incomprehensible bullish news drops. Don't get overexposed. Don't underestimate how long this can ultimately take to play out. Zoom out, survive, and all will eventually be well.
Wait. This is a Steven tweet?
I know.
This is like
It's
very
like,
different.
It's like Zend.
This
This
is
is
like
Steven
Steven
post
influencer
pickleball.
tweet?
He's like,
Yeah, this is like
Calm
he
down.
just
Just got
got
laid.
financial advisor tweet. Yeah, usually it's like Steven
In the next
Steven
3
comedy.
days.
Yeah. It's some like deep facetiousness usually. Damn, he must be so happy right now, though. We miss you that much, Steven.
I know.
This is just unfair without you.
It was a perfect tweet to
Yeah.
read, I think, for
Yeah.
kind of the
But
sentiment.
I think
we're
I like
going
that
after.
style. It's like direct. I know what I'm getting,
Yeah, but to your point, like, how do you know when to buy? Like,
Yeah.
I think like when I exited crypto largely, this was like when ETH was at 3K or 3,200, whatever. I said to myself, I want to buy back in around 1,700, and I would shove it in. And then we went back down to 1,000, and then I got greedy, and I was like, I'm not gonna buy yet. Like, it's going to 500. Now it's at 1,700 again. I'm like, well, I don't want to miss my chance to do
Yeah,
what I said I
you're
was
there.
gonna do. So I am buying in, and it's like it's heavier than like
Good for you,
a
because
DCA.
most people would have missed it completely. Because
everyone
their
missed
greed
it.
would have got the
Yeah.
best of them multiple times.
Yeah.
And they just would have kept following this like weird.
What
greed
time horizon are you
FOMO.
putting? Because like I would like a formula, if you don't mind. So like
The algo one's a formula.
like I think over the the next 9 months, it's a good time range to start DCAing. And you don't want to just, let's say, I don't know, 30 weeks worth, something like that. You don't want to put 1/30th a week, because if it goes down, you want to have more to shove in. So you're taking like 1/60th of it, put it every week, and if it goes down, shove double, triple that, or you just keeping it simple.
I guess you want to turn it into algo. I don't have an algo for you, but I was actually thinking about this as like a broader perspective. Like when people buy sort of even arbitrarily in chunks, like even when you get your paycheck or whatever, like whenever you buy it, that is essentially dollar cost averaging. Like you're just buying an irregular time. That literally is just dollar cost averaging. I don't know why buying on a regular time frame is any better than an irregular one.
Yeah.
It's just like you want to buy it and you buy it. Like for me, I want to buy ETH.
Armand, what's going on in the chat? You're
I'm just
smirking over there.
just laughing in the chat because they're reminding me that recently on ESPN, Pickle was on ESPN, and they wanted me to ask Steven why they would put a non-sport on a sport channel. So, but
That's a good
unfortunately, he's not
question.
here.
That's a good
Wait,
question.
was
for me
it
to
was it on the
ask him.
Ocho or was it on ESPN
No, it was
proper?
like ESPN 2 or 3,
Oh, well,
like pretty up there.
I guess I have a question to
And-
the question.
yeah.
I've also seen billiards on ESPN. I've seen bowling on ESPN.
Okay.
Are these sports too?
Definitely more than Pickle.
I've seen
Yes.
cornhole on ESPN.
Yeah, more than Pickle.
Those are all sports.
Break a sweat. No, I'm giving Steven a hard time. We miss you. No, it's more of a sport than cornhole, but not much more than billiards. I put it right up there with billiards.
I sweat my ass off playing with you guys recently.
Oh man, that was good. That was good. Thank you guys. Edmund wants me to say that pickleball is racist, but hard to disagree, honestly.
Hot take, but
Hot take.
I'll allow
Okay,
it.
you know.
I saw my cousin posted this. He said, I saw sumo on ESPN at the gym. Sumo, most definitely more sport than pickleball.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Imagine Steven stepping in a sumo ring.
All right,
Oh,
let's switch topics. Let's talk about Twitter getting a license to operate as like a little crypto hub to move crypto on behalf of their customers, potentially exchange crypto.
So do you think that would be like used for payments? What's your immediate take? Because I didn't like read too deeply into this. I just had like immediate thoughts, and I wonder if your immediate thoughts mirrored mine.
Yeah.
Mine were like, so this is for like
Well, he wants us to send money to each other,
like, and maybe as
whatever that might be.
so like Twitter right now, just using like fiat is you can pay for super follows or
No, this is-
subscriptions.
You can
stuff.
tip.
You can tip.
Yep.
Okay.
You can subscribe.
But iteration 7 of this is that we're sending the actual currencies back and forth to each other on platform.
Right
Like
now, they're kind of
Venmo.
the intermediary, but like, yeah, I think it's like, hey,
That's
we
the point.
grabbed a drink at the bar. I just send it to
Like
you via
Venmo.
Twitter.
Oh, it becomes a Venmo.
Yes.
Yeah. Got it.
Because that's the everything app vision. It is
Yeah.
everything app, meaning Venmo is also
Okay,
on
so
X.
if that's the vision, then I'm pretty clear in what this means for crypto. I guess, like in my opinion, if we're talking about iteration 7 of this,
Yes.
it's going they're going to allow all forms of currency
Mm-hmm.
including cryptocurrency, all forms. This is not going to be like Doge winner.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
this
there
is
might
like
be a little box with a highlight around it that like features Doge.
yeah, but this is like USDC. This
Yes.
is ETH. This is
Yeah.
Bitcoin. This is everything.
Because if you're going to do it right,
Just-
you would lose market to someone who
yeah,
does.
you want to allow all
you
payment
want to allow
forms.
Yes. Yeah.
Man, I mean, this is good. This is good for crypto, but for
It's good for crypto
Twitter,
for sure, dude.
honestly, I think it's gonna flop.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, I mean, think about your level of trust with the brand Twitter or just using the app. Like, one thing I've been significantly disappointed about Elon and his team taking over the app and under his technical direction is that there's still a ton of spam. There's still a bunch of phishing links going on. I mean, look at your guys' comments or your just notifications. I mean, you're just hit
so
up
what are you
with it.
saying? Like, I might get like sending to the wrong person kind of shit.
Well, no, it's more about like in America, we have special apps for these. We have
Yeah.
banking only apps. We have fintech only apps in which money
Yeah, but like, let's
happens.
just look at like just for the sake of the argument, like just look at Venmo.
Yeah.
Like all you have to do is enter the person's phone number or username and send or scan a QR code. And then the most that it does is say verify the last 4 digits of this person's phone number to make sure this is who you want to send it to. But that front end works really nicely. Are there people who have sent money to the wrong person? Yes. Was it their fault? Yes.
Hell of a lot better than crypto.
Hell of a lot better. So like if you just had Venmo living inside of Twitter, I think that's effective. Like how does Twitter fuck that up?
I don't know. I think like Twitter is just like this land of the power law where like 1 out of 40 people actually post. And, you know,
Well, that's because no
I
one
think it's
uses
gonna be
social media anymore.
1 out of
no one,
400
no one
people.
posts to social media anymore.
But 1 out of 400 people are going to use the payments app in it because like you're not going to, where you see a ton of spam in the comments or in your notifications, you're not going to want to do your financial things in this app.
I hear you on this perspective, but I think that you're taking something that is a problem in the short term with something that is iteration 7 on the financial side in the long term and crossing those two things.
Possibly. I just, you know,
And I think there's time and I think it will
Yeah.
improve. And you're not just going to do payments only. You might be hopping in a self-driving Tesla through that app. You know, you're doing all kinds of things in that app.
This is a common
You're ordering
criticism
your-
actually between investors and traders or whatever. This is like you talking a short term, is this going to flop? And I think you talking long term.
I'm also thinking long term too. It's just not in our behavior. So you look at WeChat he's talking about the everything app. He's talking about WeChat in China.
Yeah.
That was a country of mostly unbanked people. So you had an issue of like people using cash and the government wanted them to be able to send money back and forth. And I kind of liken it to, you look at third world countries, like we went from telephone wires and poles and we used that to access the internet. And these third world countries skipped that step and went straight to broadband and 5G. Similarly, China did not have a bunch of banking institutions with banking the entire population with bank accounts. They went straight to, well, here's an everything app where you can send currency. And we don't have that in America. We don't have that behavior. We're used to having these
But, like,
separate islands in our mind.
Why
where
did
we do this-
Venmo win? I guess that's my question because like everybody uses Venmo for payments. We linked our bank accounts to Venmo
Because
it
it was
was
a
so much
payment
better
only
than PayPal.
application. It wasn't like this cesspool of social media
so we're
around
touching on a different thing, which I think is also like, can an everything app actually work in the Western world,
Right.
in the United States and abroad? That to me is the bigger challenge. We were discussing that in Discord one time. I think it was Rectum that brought it up and was like, we were going back and forth a little bit, like, because I ranted on this a little bit, maybe like 3 episodes ago, but that's the biggest challenge that I see for X.
Well, it's a massive challenge.
Huge. And we don't have an example of that. And you're right that the situation in China, Nick, with WeChat and the environment that existed prior to it sort of taking over payments and taking over all these different infrastructure and life components of people's lives was very different than what things are in the United States. So to try to, create that in the United States is, I think, going to be extremely difficult, because the reason that most companies win and most products win is product market fit being achieved rapidly and iteratively. How do you achieve product market fit with something that is supposed to do everything? Who's your product for if it does everything? It goes against everything that we know about startups succeeding. However, if I'm going to argue the other side, the difference is this is an established company. It's an established tool. It already has a presence in many people's lives. It doesn't have a presence in a ton of people's lives. And I think the reason it doesn't have a presence is because the brand that Twitter represented is something that a lot of people are not interested in. But if Twitter then expands to these different modalities and these different functions and these different products, then I think you can attract the moms and the seniors and the kids and people that never touched Twitter before.
Right.
So you have these weird conflating variables happening all at the same time. And I think it's one of the most fascinating things to watch in business is to see how this plays out. Because there's a lot of factors going for it and a lot of factors going against it.
Yeah, I mean, haven't you been a little disappointed in still the same amount of spam? Like, even with verified accounts, I'm seeing verified accounts like just
I am
shilling.
disappointed in that, but I'm super impressed by other things that they've done. So, God knows like what the inner workings of that company looks like right now. They had all this like layoffs, and then they're getting sued for not paying people for those layoffs and all those things. So there's a lot going on, and they had to shift attention to certain areas. I think they've done a really great job with some things.
I don't know. I've been a user for a long time. I noticed it's more similar than dissimilar. Like it just feels like the same to me.
It's already totally different in the sense of like how they're monetizing and doing spaces and rewarding content creators and laying out the infrastructure. These things happen slowly, and I think compared to a lot of companies, they're happening rapidly for a company that laid off more than half of its workforce. So, yeah.
I do think the monetization of the ads and the comments is smart. Like that was the biggest change I saw in incentivizing creators.
Yeah.
That's a smooth move.
Look, I have no idea how this is going to play out, but I don't know. It sounds cliche at this point, but I try not to bet against Elon.
All right.
Can
I you mentioned like ordering your self-driving Tesla in there?
Yeah, I can't wait for that.
I do got like a long out of the money bet that at some point Tesla will acquire X, will acquire Twitter.
Okay.
Yes, I actually was thinking about that today.
And he'll position it as it is we have our Tesla cars that drive, and that is a visual AI.
Yeah.
And here's our text AI that we're going to use as like we're going to be the sole user of this information. And he already started off by closing off the API. You have to pay in order to read the data and access the data through the API. So he immediately made that cost prohibitive. Wouldn't be surprised if he tries to pull out an exit for the investors by being acquired by Tesla in exchange for Tesla shares and saying this is
totally agree.
Embedded.
Mina was asking me literally today. She's
really?
Like, she goes, so what happened to X stock? Like where do we buy it? Is the ticker symbol X? I was like, no, it's not publicly traded anymore. Like you took it private. And she's like, well, SpaceX is public, right? I was like, no, that's private. And I just began thinking like, maybe this all just rolls up under Tesla eventually. So
SpaceX would be a good IPO candidate, or even what's the satellite? Starlink. Yeah, that
as like there's so many damn companies now. There's XAI and there's X parent.
Yeah, but is that part of Tesla? And that what a perfect way to rebrand it all together.
If Tesla's buying X, he's also buying the AI side. So because there's the AI component.
I mean, if he could pull off buying the solar company and rolling it under Tesla, he can easily pull this off.
It's just going to all become a conglomerate.
Yeah. All right, so let's should we move on to NVIDIA a little bit?
Yeah, I would love to.
Okay, so we hit all-time highs on the NVIDIA stock, and I think the idea with this conversation is to try to understand: is this are we still in the hype of the hype cycle, or are we kind of moving past that?
Are we like post-hype?
Yeah. And one of the things I'm thinking about is the massive demand for these GPUs to train models is sort of like a speculation on behalf of the customers, right? So Google Cloud is probably seeing demand. Amazon Cloud, they're the biggest customers of these GPUs. But behind there are maybe startups behind it, companies that don't really have a business model behind these AI models that they're training. And so if you follow it down the value chain, down the supply chain, like there is speculation behind this. And so the bull case is that there's 10,000 models being trained and 10 unicorns will come out of this, right?
Yep.
The bearish side of this is that all these customers buying these GPUs, providing demand for NVIDIA, no sustainable business model, the next Google or whatever, will not come out of these. So all we're essentially doing is just pulling forward 2 years of demand for NVIDIA GPUs. So I don't know. I kind of am thinking about these two scenarios in my head as of this week.
So I think you're right, Armand. Just to catch you up, we're talking about the AI hype cycle, particularly as it pertains to NVIDIA and like the GPUs and customer demand and stuff. I think where my head's at is like, you can be very early stage hype cycle on the tech, and you can be like mid to late hype cycle on the stonk prices. You know, like we saw that in the .com in 2001, right? Like 2001 was like very early .com, but like .com stonks fucking crashed.
Right.
So I think like with NVIDIA as a representation of like the AI stocks, what I think I saw is just like in its most recent earnings call, it over delivered on numbers. It like expectations were like so high, and it even surpassed that.
Over delivered on some factors by 50%.
Yeah, just absolutely crushing, and the stock did not move. So that to me,
I don't understand why you said that offline. Stock did not move. What do you mean it didn't move?
I mean,
it was up and after hours. The next day it opened up and it was flat.
Okay.
Like it kind of retraced the
like I think it's where it was pre-earnings now.
Pre-earnings now. Okay.
So like the stock hasn't moved.
Okay.
Even
it
on
moved, it just. I see what you're saying. The baseline is not it.
Because on the last earnings call in the previous quarter, that wasn't priced in at all, and the stock jumped like 35%.
Do you feel this
after
was priced in to a degree?
What I'm saying now is that like we've priced in sort of like the future of what Nick's describing, is just like this massive demand that exists from large language models, where we need like this like 1000x data demand that we have in our lives that only GPUs can provide. We know that like they're going to be fucking slanging GPUs the minute they have them ready, and the stock price reflects that now.
So this is my question for you, Armand. I mean, you're definitely more on the on the street level of like, what is AI doing? So my biggest question is, one, are all the people buying these GPUs to train models? That, to me, that's speculation right now, at the hope that these will turn into real business models. I think they will. I think new business models will form, new great companies will be generated, and then that demand will continue. It might, regulate, titrate a little bit, but there will be new models. I don't know if they're going to be in the biggest companies that already exist or startups. So, and you could either take it there or just in general. Where do you think AI is? Because you're in this day to day.
You need the GPUs if you're training models. Like those two things just go together. Like, yes, they are using them to train models. And or in general, I think that companies are looking at these, there's a lot of FOMO and there's scarcity, and it's an asset on your balance sheet as well. I mean, to pull an Elon quote, because he's so good at being quotable sometimes, like GPUs are harder to get than like some street drugs right now. Like they're really, really, really hard to get, and the demand is
GPU, bro.
Yeah, I'll get you a GPU by 3:00, man. I know who to call, but it's like, dirty whites. The ringer, dude, the ringer. That's sorry.
Did I miss that? What's the?
It's the Big Lebowski.
Three brown guys can't say dirty whites.
So, most quotable movie of all time. But yeah, I mean, it's an incredible asset. It's gold. It's even better than gold. And what companies will be able to build is more unpredictable than it is predictable. We know that what it can do today, and we know that the H100 in particular, which is the best GPU that we have today for now, is clearly in demand. But you don't need GPUs to build for the most part as a startup. Like, you really don't, because most people aren't training a model or building a large language model or working on a foundational model. Foundational models are Google, are Meta, are OpenAI, right? Are Azure,
Right.
Like these are the guys that are most involved in that department. But you can go to AWS, you can go to Google Cloud, and you can rent, GPUs in the cloud. But you can also rent the GPUs themselves and the hardware. You can set up a deal with these guys if you even wanted to train, but you didn't want to manage the infrastructure yourself. I mean, you don't want. I mean, that's a lot, by the way. Just managing GPUs is very difficult, time consuming. There's a lot of on a daily level maintenance involved in even being able to do that. They're also really hot and you got to store them somewhere and they're loud and it's a whole clusterfuck. But you don't need to do that necessarily because oftentimes what a lot of companies want to do, they think they need GPUs, but they're just like, there's inferences from the models that they're utilizing. They're not training a model.
Yeah. So like you're saying that, in order to have potentially a blockbuster startup, you don't necessarily need to train your own model. You can, instead of renting out GPUs, you could rent the model. You can use the APIs of some of these like core models, correct? Or open source.
Yeah. There's kind of a couple things there, right? It's like, well, first of all, like you may not even need to develop your own model is kind of what I'm trying to drive at as well. Because most of what people want to do, they can accomplish with prompt engineering or fine tuning a model. And all of these things can be done on their own locally, right? But like say you did want to train a model, I'm saying you don't even necessarily need, these types of GPUs. You can rent them out. But say you did, say you wanted GPUs because you wanted to do some form of AI in your company and you wanted to have like some inference that you ran where say you wanted to prompt OpenAI, one of OpenAI's models like GPT-4 to run some sort of summarization engine or something like that. The model already exists. You just want to be able to run a lot of computation in the cloud. But if you did it outside of the cloud, if you did it on GPUs, they don't need to be H100s. So I think like some alpha for people is that you actually don't need the top of the line GPUs for the most part. You can go and find these GPUs from NVIDIA that people were using for crypto mining, that are for gaming, that are much cheaper, not nearly as powerful, but more than enough, actually extremely powerful for the average startup company. So there's just so many paths. There's renting, there's acquiring cheaper ones, there's going to other, there's just so many ways. But back to your earlier point, I'll give a shout out actually to Max. I think he's here actually in the YouTube as well. Max Tanon and Max in our Discord, who seems to be a really sharp dude and was talking about some stuff that I found.
Popped up.
Yeah, I found real. Oh, and there he is commenting right now. Since this is his, definitely his domain.
I'll read out his. He says, I think it's so early as well because all these LLMs are essentially read only still and can't update / retrain in real time yet.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think is accurate that he was talking about as well, I'll just kind of go over here. Just this idea that like you in the future are not going to need to like really build models. And in the future, here's kind of more specifically what he said, that there's a trend of training a neural network. A neural network is basically like the foundation of the model. It's like a neural network is like a representation of the brain. It's like the way that AI first started is like our belief was, well, it's artificial intelligence. So we just try to map what the brain looks like and how the brain functions, and that's what AI should be as well. And so it all begins with this like neural network from scratch, and that's becoming outdated because of fine tuning. So like some news that we had recently was GPT 3.5 now has fine tuning available for developers, which is really big because a lot of things that you might want to do, all that it might require is fine tuning one of these models to perform a specific function.
For your use case.
For your use case that GPT 3.5 or 4 does not do well because it's such a large model. But then also you can get away with just prompt engineering to accomplish a lot of things because again, this is it's a pattern machine. It's all it's doing is it's like predicting. It's a prediction machine, which is why, by the way, EJ, it's not good at the calculus it's not even calculus, but the financial modeling that you want it to do sometimes. In particular, BARD is just horrendous with this stuff. I think ChatGPT is actually really solid with this stuff, but you don't use that for a lot of what you're trying to do because you need up-to-date data, which it does not have. But my prediction is that if and when ChatGPT had that real-time data, it would do a much better job because the training on that foundational model is so much better than Bard.
But I guess what you're saying is that there's not enough prompts from guys like me to like sort of tighten that, or
No,
I think
I'm
it's just the way it
talking about-
works.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
the fundamental way of how GPT works.
Numbers and things
It's literally
like that.
probabilistically calculating what's the next letter
Exactly.
to type out.
So it's much better with text generation for now than it is with like you wanting to generate, these financial models. It's just going to make mistakes because it didn't have that in its foundational data, and maybe there wasn't enough reinforcement learning when they created it up till 2021 to be able to then create a good example for what you're looking for.
So all this demand that we're seeing for NVIDIA, there's new companies, the big boys are definitely buying them, but you're saying that like, hey, if you're an everyday startup, even a VC-backed startup, you don't necessarily need to buy those units. You can
I think you're
models.
like actually going down a path that I want to ask, like a simpler question, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like the simpler question that I had was like, can you just explain NVIDIA's business model, right? Like its customers are both Armon and AWS and Azure, or is it like their customers Azure, AWS, and then the customers of Azure and AWS are Armon?
Yeah, both. I mean, like
both. But
cloud
the
is like a
majority,
channel.
of course, are those
Or
big
the big
guys.
dogs.
So they have billions of dollars.
Okay, because like
to
the way
spend.
that I'm framing NVIDIA in my mind is that like this is like an AI arms race amongst like these big nations. The big nations are Amazon, Google, Meta, and like these guys can't get behind in the arms race, so they'll literally pay whatever they can to get the latest and greatest weaponry, which are like the greatest
Yeah,
GPUs.
I mean, why wouldn't you? Right?
Yeah, and like so for me, like I know that NVIDIA has like had this massive run, and that it has kind of like plateaued a bit here on these like incredible earnings numbers, but like that to me doesn't say that it's over. Like it's like I think we just see now sort of like a slower trajectory of growth on the stonk price. Not the fundamentals are just going to continue.
Yeah,
flat.
I mean, if you're AWS, if you're Jassy, if you're Sundar at Google, like, and you have the balance sheet to just hoard these things, like
you just want to buy the
your
latest
risk is that
and
you
greatest.
didn't do enough.
It's the same as like the
Yeah.
U.S. military. They'll like literally spend whatever they can on like the greatest weapons. Like
Yeah, I think like 3 months ago, off the first pop we saw from NVIDIA, I was asking like, will these models take less and less training to be built? Have you seen any trends with like models being able to be
This is
created
where
with
I
less
think
and less data?
Maybe we're getting it wrong. Maybe the market's getting it wrong. Maybe AI people are getting it wrong. I think that Max is right that like the foundational models are so strong and will continue to become stronger, and they are the ones that will. These large companies are the ones that will continue to accumulate the GPUs. Most any other company, first of all, that's a problem, by the way. It means that we're only going to have a handful of foundational of companies creating these models and controlling these models. It's not decentralized
winners
enough.
keep winning.
That's
Yeah.
a whole different problem.
Yeah.
But I think we've already known, and the AI world already knows that the incumbents are going to accumulate most of the value.
They just have so many advantages. Yeah.
In every way.
Yeah.
However, the new players to the game, I think, thinking that they need to develop their own models could be wrong. And again, I could be wrong about this, but I think that Max is right in the sense that most of what you want to accomplish, you can accomplish with just a narrow segment of the data.
Yeah.
And you just need to fine tune it or prompt engineer and then layer on your own proprietary data. And together with your own proprietary data, the foundational model doing exactly what you want it to do. There's something that a fund by the name of NFX put out one time, and I brought them up in a previous episode one time, but they have this in AI called the 5-layer AI tech stack. And I highly recommend looking at that because most people are operating on an application layer. All they want is an application that performs the functions of what they need it to do for their end customer. They don't really care about the foundational model. Yeah, very specialized way. But in the middle of that sandwich as well, you've got kind of the OS layer and the application layer, and then you've got the foundational models. But you also have like the hyper-local layer. And in that hyper-local layer, you can create a feedback loop between your customers and the application and your data. And you can then further develop a sort of proprietary nature to your own AI model without needing to create your own AI model. I'm trying to use very basic ways of describing this stuff to say, like,
but in order to like fulfill that vision, would you need a local GPU as well? Just maybe not that.
not necessarily. And I think a really great resource for understanding, like, do I need one? Does my startup need one? So A16Z has a podcast, and they put out an episode maybe like 4 or 5 episodes ago. They did a little series on AI and hardware, and I highly recommend checking that out. It's just like AI hardware revolution. Do I need GPUs? The race for GPUs is kind of that kind of title.
Great.
Maybe if I find it, I'll just put it in the show notes for people. But yeah, because they walk through very technical questions that you might be asking yourself, and based on those needs, Eric, it's like, you know, it's going to be a little bit different. You could get away with renting. You could get away with different GPUs. You might be able to get away with just going to AWS and paying the premium because you have the funds.
Like allowing them to compute.
Yeah. There's just so many ways to do it. And AWS, by the way, is giving you these H100s through them. So, and then the allocations of who has what is also kind of confusing. Like, Amazon seems to have like a lot of obviously allocation of these NVIDIA GPUs, but then they have their own agreements in place. And so, yeah, it's a little confusing.
The NVIDIA CEO showed up at a Google Cloud event.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, as you were talking, I was thinking about it. I was like, man, like as an entrepreneur who's not used to going to the VC route, grow at all costs, take other people's money, who's more used to like self-funding and get to cash flow positive as fast as possible. I like this moment in the industry where the capital intensive part is happened or is happening. There's this other layer of people who will provide those services to you in the form of APIs or some kind of endpoint. And sure, they'll take their rake, but for someone who's going to potentially self-fund or closely held fund a business, that's the most exciting time. And not only do you have one or two, but you probably have like thousands of those people competing for you to actually use those endpoints and use their like localized models or fine tuning of these foundational models. And I don't know, it's going to be really right for business entrepreneurs and tech oriented entrepreneurs to build leverage
and investment, because like these like entrepreneurial type like apps that get developed will ultimately be where like value accrues.
But it's funny
I just want to
because
make it clear, you can build a multi-billion-dollar company still. We're talking about a huge amount of capital that will be accumulated outside of the incumbents.
And you pay like a monthly
it's a slice of the pie.
You can pay like a service fee to a data center and a licensing fee to an API of like a large language model, and you can create $1 billion business.
And you can still do it with proprietary data, proprietary technology, or just an incredible moat around another area of your product that isn't data related. But you don't need your edge to be GPUs necessarily.
And if like I'm a VC, I know that I don't have like a training like them. I don't think investments like them. But if I'm like them, I would much rather, invest in a company that is leveraging these things and be much more capital efficient and have a shorter path to cash flow positive than what you typically hear, which is like, well, what model are you using? How are you defensible? How are you unique? And I think a lot of venture capitalists get tied up around that. Not how, okay, now that you don't have to do any computation on your own, you don't have to build anything unique. You can use this variety of services that this value chain is magically set up for you to leverage and use these competitors against each other to go fast. Now, show me how fast you can go, and I'll follow on invest based upon how fast you go and how fast you can acquire users in your go-to-market strategy. But it still seems like a lot of VCs are just like, well, no, I need to know what is specifically proprietary. And maybe that's just where VCs, that's their specialty.
They just don't understand this world as well as they, I mean, again, like they're students of it like we all are. We're all students of this world, and it's a rapidly evolving technology. And depending on the VC the person is talking to, they're either really into this stuff or a little more risk averse because they're just like, oh, AI is a little scary. I don't quite know what to make of it. Let me talk to our resident AI specialist. And what's so unique and proprietary about what you're doing becomes the question, when really the question is, when I give you money, will that money create growth? And by the way, when I give you that money, you have to fucking deploy it. Right. Because like if you take money from somebody, if you take money from a VC and you go, okay, cool, thank you. now I have my runway for 10 years. They'll be like, no, 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 no,
Yeah,
no, no.
fuck
You're
off.
spending this money. They need you to spend that money fast. But they also need it to lead to results and traction and product market fit so that they can have further rounds. And
It's interesting as an entrepreneur taking that first Series A. You could be like, yeah, I'll use it, and then when you get the money, be like, fuck off. You got one board seat. I still have two. I'm gonna use it to last.
Theoretically,
I'm
yeah.
gonna get to like cash flow positive.
It's oddly similar to investment management, where you take the money in from a client, and they're like, okay, now make me money.
Yeah.
And like it's not always that you're like, well, I don't really want to deploy this yet, but
yeah.
they expect it. They
And
expect
that's exactly that's true too, that like you could, but the reason that they want you to deploy as well is because for some funds, like they're not playing a game of wanting like a 3x return,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
A 3x return isn't going to cut it for them. They need the 100 to 1000x returns to make up for all the blunders.
Yeah.
So they need you to exit for over $1 billion. 100 million, while is really nice and could be a 3 to 5x for them, is just it's not going to cut it. It's just so they need to push and incentivize that rapid growth.
That'd be cool if you stole Steno for 100 million.
I mean, I'm not talking about myself
Yeah, I
here,
know.
but yeah,
All right.
yeah, I'm no question.
All right. Well, before we transition to our friendship recession topic, do us a personal favor. If you're watching right now, can you hit the like button? I've heard it helps. So hit the like button for us. Get those up, and let's continue on to this friendship.
Can I? Sorry.
You have a closing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was some requests about, we opened a loop a couple episodes ago, just really quickly
Yeah.
on this AI stuff. Just a discussion about like how to build and the teams and
Oh,
stuff.
yeah,
'cause
let's
it
talk
keeps
about that.
coming up. It's like, and I apparently opened the loop about like what kind of team and what do you need to actually go and start a startup
Yeah.
in AI.
And I'm curious myself about like what kind of technical people do we need?
Yeah. So I'll tell you about my team.
Cool.
And then I don't know if that's the right answer, but it's working well. So there's me. I'm a business guy. I'm not a developer or a programmer, but by trade, I'm a product and marketing guy. Like I've always been in product and marketing, and like, how do I achieve product market fit as quickly as possible? And like Nick said, my businesses have always been about cash flow positivity and bootstrapping, getting there as quickly as possible. But in general, you need one person in the startup to be the CEO, to be the business guy. And that person's job in an AI startup is get users and get money. So their job definition is very, very clear. You bring us users and you bring us capital, or money generally. And that money could be from investors to keep the lights on, or money like literally like revenue, dollars in the door. So that's that person's job. And then you need everyone else to code, in my opinion. Like you have people that are bringing you users, and you have people that are coding and building product. And those are the two things that you mainly need for a startup, generally speaking, not just an AI startup. And Paul Graham talks about this a lot from Y Combinator. It's like, if you're bringing in like operations people and stuff like that, you're going to lose very quickly.
Like that should be the CEO also doing the operations.
Yeah.
Or like, Naval says
everyone does
either
it.
you code or you sell.
Yeah.
If you do both, you're
I
fucking
guess Naval
unicorn.
says it too. There you
Yeah.
go. So it's like, yeah, coding and selling is really what it comes down to. But specifically in AI, there's this interesting crossover happening now where, what really is the skill set of AI? Like what are you looking for here? Are you looking for a front-end developer? Are you looking for a back-end developer who understands data science? Are you looking for a data scientist by trade? And you're kind of looking for a little bit of all of those things, right? Because depending on what you're trying to build, let's just assume you want to build an application. And to be specific, let's say you want to build a B2B software, a B2B SaaS platform, a B2B SaaS product, which I think I would say 80% of AI products that are going to succeed are B2B SaaS products. And there are some B2C out there, but generally if you're going venture, it needs to be B2B to succeed. Say it's like a marketing tech product.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're going to need some back-end help. You're going to need a back-end developer. Maybe you get a full stack developer. Those are rare, right? So you got a full stack or a back-end and a front-end guy. And then your front-end person, if it's also your full stack guy, your front-end person is building the application itself. They're doing a lot of the heavy lifting. So for us, that's Paulo. and he's incredible, and he moves fast.
He's working at the UI layer, like the buttons I see, everything else, the interactions.
All the interactions, all the building that happens with your users and what they interact with on a daily basis. This is the person that's creating that product experience. But they're also doing a lot of things, that go beyond just the vanity layer of the front end. So you need this person to just generally be really skilled. You've got a lot of like technical database stuff that needs to happen as well. So that's where your back-end person comes into play, or your data scientist. And I do think that you really do need a data scientist to drive a lot of what's happening on the AI front. So what's fascinating is a lot of data scientists are learning to code. And typically, like data scientists know some Python, but they also can become developers, and there's like a merging happening between those two worlds. But there's also a lot of developers and engineers becoming data scientists. And this is all because AI is rapidly evolving, and like what you need and how to build quickly is changing. So, how do I use these models? Do we use an open source model like Llama 2? Do we use GPT-4? Are we training a model? Are we just sort of fine-tuning one? These are all things that your data scientist will be in charge of and will lead and drive. And for us, that's Ian. So Ian is making all of those decisions and driving product and the technical stack.
That's interesting. So like, in a basic N-tier architecture structure for your application, there's a data layer, there's a business logic layer, and a UI layer. And in the past companies I've started, ideally there's a full stack person that can cross over between the data layer and the business logic layer.
Helps.
Yeah, it definitely helps to have a beast of a CTO who can take on both of those. And then, they're like, no, get a front end guy. I don't want to code the front end. And those two combined can do it. But what you're saying is that, well, in an AI startup, that business logic layer and that data layer needs more data science skill set than your typical web app or B2B web app that we're accustomed to using. Is that right?
Yeah, and look, like it is right. And people that come in and you decide to like start your startup with, as long as they're willing to grow and learn, and if they're technical as well, like, or if you're technical, like I'll give Ian's example. Ian is a data scientist by trade, but with Steno, when he came into Steno, it was like that was the focus. But very quickly, he's been taking on the database layer. He's been taking on the back end. He's been taking on some of the front end. And he's now becoming, we're like, hey, should you be the CTO? Like, that's what seems to make sense here. And like, when you look at the role long term, it is more of a CTO role that's happening there. And you can grow into that. And so as long as people are willing to grow into their roles and expand their technical skill set and move with AI as quickly as possible, I think like you're gonna find some success. But if you're working with people, like I think the thing to watch out for in general, because who your co-founders are is the most important decision when you're starting the startup. It's like, who are you willing to build with? Nick, we call them battle buddies, right?
Yeah.
It's like, who are your battle buddies? And as long as like, for me, it's like, I forget who said it. It might have been Naval. It might have been another Navalism. But they need to be hardworking and they need to be smart. And if you have those core components, and of course you need to trust them and have a good time with them.
because it's like a marriage at the end of the day, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It very much is a marriage. Like you take on the same risk levels. You take on when you pay yourselves, when you don't. I mean, like you take
Totally.
on, you share so many things.
I think you said this in the last episode. It's like, don't work a day with somebody you wouldn't work with for the rest of your life. And that's a Mark Zuckerbergism as well. Mark Zuckerbergism as well is don't hire somebody that you wouldn't work for. Like, you never know how roles will change as well. Like, be willing to work for those people. And if you wouldn't be willing to work for those people, ask yourself why. But in general, don't underestimate those two things that I just said, because they're way more important than I thought. And I've learned that from previous companies. Smart and hardworking sound like platitudes, but I promise you they're not. Smart and hardworking are the most important things. Like, truly, do they have grit? Will they overcome like the hard, just like the chewing of the glass, will they stare? One of the best things as well about having co-founders, and what I think to really get to the point of the person's question or community, is like what you really need when you're building a startup, as well as I think I actually, and Nick, this, we've had a lot of conversations about this. I intended originally to do this all by myself.
Right.
And I very quickly learned that that was not the smart thing to do. And that the company is more likely to succeed when you have some accountability and you have battle buddies and people that when you're not just chewing the glass, but you're also staring into the abyss and your head is on the floor and your face is in the ground and you want to cry and you don't want to pick yourself back up. You know why you pick yourself back up when you have partners? Because they're there and they're waiting on you and they're counting on you. So you're more likely to get up and get moving when you're also having to show up for your buddies who you're like, guys, we have to succeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that hits home. Like I've thought about like the solopreneur, path of like, I'll just acquire some websites, some smaller companies, and I'll just manage them myself. But consistently found myself with partners who kind of, match well on the risk levels that we're willing to take. And also more importantly, match on like the critical success factors of the business. Like, do they match well? Can we section ourselves off so we fully match this? But yeah, I mean, I haven't had a business yet that's had those moments. And, you realize that you got to deliver for yourself, but for the employees, but also for your business partner too. And it does provide a little extra
accountability is a
motivation.
real thing, and that's something Ian says to me all the time. He's like, accountability is the most powerful thing that gets people to show up to work and do good work. And I thought about it a lot. I'm like, I think that is true, actually. It's like no matter how many stand-ups you do, no matter how many KPIs you do, what really matters is when someone's like, hey, is this ready? And they're waiting for you. Like that shit gets you to move. So anyway, there's plenty more there I'm happy to talk about in the Discord, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, let us know if you want
that.
more of this, startup talk, entrepreneurship talk, whether it's like a VC route or just, you're kind of like self-funding business talk.
I think you guys have had enough experience too where you could talk about things you don't want in a partner, and that would be interesting, I think, as well. So like that could be this whole other episode.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about this friendship recession we're experiencing. So I forget where we got this
All right,
from.
first question, are you guys my friends?
Yes, we have friends.
Yeah, 6+, baby.
Okay, we're friends.
Okay, check.
All right.
Like real friends, like outside the podcast, or just like when we're live?
No, just here.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Do it.
Situational, they call that.
Situational, convenient friends, not here when you might need me. No. Okay, so this study that we found is stated the state of American friendship, changes, challenges, and losses. But what it highlighted is that Americans have less friends now than when they did before.
Like 30 years ago.
Yeah, we're looking at like compared to 1990, but the study was kind of done, as like a post-pandemic, post-mortem of like, where does friendship lie? And, for those of you who maybe came to us through our interview with David on Bankless, like one of the key themes around this was like, this started as a group of friends getting together and like having some meaningful conversations and using this sounding board as to maybe drive our life a little bit. And I think we uniquely rely on our friendships to figure out life, especially when it's really good, but also when it's really shitty. And so when I saw this, I was like, man, that sucks, because I view friendships as like a very meaningful part. My family's important. My significant other relationship is important, just as important. But I don't rely on them for everything. I think it's kind of like a disservice to rely on, say, your wife or your family members for everything in your life, to be your career advisor, your lover, your friend, your, maybe hashtag, like semi investment advisor, like all those things that come up in life. To put that on your core family is kind of tough to do, and it's an expectation that's a pretty high expectation to put on some of those people. So that's where like close friends come into play. So I don't know, Jordan, we have some graphics queued up, and there's a main one there that talks about the number of close friendships that Americans has declined over the past several decades. Yep, that's the one. So let's show that on the screen. And basically what we're looking at, I think that the stat that summarizes it the best is they asked the percentage of Americans who say they have the following number of close friends, not counting their relatives. And there's a line on that says, how many of you have 10 or more close friends? And in 1990, that was a third of people. And more recently, that's just over 10%. So you're talking about like a 2/3 decline of people who have a significant amount of close friends. And another stat, you take the other extreme, how many of you have no close friends? In 1990, that was 3%, and it's 4x'd.
Dude,
Over 10% of people say, I have
400%.
0 close friends.
That's insane.
I mean, we rely on each other. I think you guys kind of echo the sentiments I say, but like, I mean, I'm just curious what your guys' thoughts were when, like, I'm trying to imagine my like week to week
I don't
life.
know. I feel like very sad, like internally.
So-
my heart breaks to know like 1 out of 10 people don't have that person.
So when I see this, what I see is like on a macro scale, there's like a systemic issue, and I would like to like drill down into those. And on a micro scale, what I see is like, how did we beat these odds, and like what can people do to improve their positioning? But like on the macro scale, you know, like this is worrisome, right? Like later you're going to show some stats that say like people with more friends in like a linear progression, like more friends equals better happiness.
Yeah,
or
Jordan,
like,
can we show this one right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's bring that one up. So it says Americans with more friends report greater satisfaction with how many friends?
Yeah, that's a little different than
Yeah.
general happiness. It's saying they're satisfied with how many friends they have.
Right. So it
But
makes
if I was to argue for what you're saying, Eric, well, we talk about the Grant study, and that's like clearly in favor of more relationships.
yeah, I might be taking a leap, but
It's not, though, I actually think. I think they're two different studies, but the better and deeper relationships you have, the longer you live, the more money, the healthier, all those things that we've talked about in other episodes from the Grant study. So I think there's clear.
And just as a reminder for
overlaps here.
those who are listening, the Grant study is this Harvard study, a longitudinal study in which they study people. I think they were born in like the 1930s or something like
They
that.
didn't even know what they were going to find, right?
They didn't know.
It
They're
was
just like, let's just study
observe
happiness over the course of people's lives. So they would start with these people, Harvard undergraduates, and then they continue to follow them until they died, and even have continued on to their like next of kin. And what they consistently found was that like the things that actually produced real happiness consistently over their lifetime, and more so maybe in the later stages of life, was their close relationships. And that as you get older, those close relationships are not only the source of the happiness, but they require nurturing. Like it doesn't just happen. And, you know, Eric, you were talking before we started recording and we were having a drink. You're like, you guys find that your circles close a little bit? Like, you know.
yeah, as we've gotten a little older, my circle's tightened. Like I trim the trees a little bit on the acquaintances, and I get a little tighter on the true friends now.
And is that you doing that consciously, or is that just life taking its natural course? Like you have a
Is
wife
this
now.
the macro or the
and-
micro?
Well, I think
I like your framework.
Yeah.
Let's work the framework.
I think for me that's the micro, in that
It is.
as we've gotten a little older, and you know this more than we do, like you have a child now, like your bandwidth to be able to like cater to, you know, the 1,000, 2,000 Facebook friends we might have acquired over life, like you literally can't do that anymore.
I think the bigger one, though, to that, agreed. But the bigger one actually was just more of a matter of like, I remember talking to you about it years ago, and I was like, dude, I've been trimming the trees, bro. And the main reason I was trimming the trees is I just didn't want to spend time around those people anymore. Like straight up, like I just like these people that I thought are just acquaintances and things like that. I don't have the room anymore in my life. It's just not there for me anymore. I care much more about investing more deeply in, you know, fewer relationships. It was a very intentional decision. I think that's a common thing with people as they get older. Once you're kind of out of college and you get past your mid-20s and you start to reflect on your life and who you want to spend your time with, by the time you're in your late 20s, I feel like a lot of people, and then especially early 30s, it's like you start to get very proactive about where your energy goes. So I think it was more that for me. Then came marriage, then came the baby and all those things. I don't think I've seen a huge drop-off personally with that, because I think I already had established who my people were before I got married and before I had the baby. So for me, it was more the intentional decision I made. But for sure, a lot of people that get married or have a kid, they'll immediately lose half of their friends.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like the common thing. It's a common joke, right? Oh, we'll never see that person again, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that's what, if they didn't intentionally trim the trees,
then
the
tree gets trimmed for you.
Yeah.
The self-trimming. Yeah.
So you mentioned the macro part. There's like some structural forces at play because
Yes.
like, you know, you look back even like, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, it wasn't necessary to have a dual income household, right? And so now more people are working, both people in the relationship, working longer hours. It's also easier to move geographically. And even during 2020, 2021, we saw people get up and move. So like that's got to be part of this thing
Big time.
too, right? Like when
Yeah.
you move geographically, when you're working harder because you have to make more money, you know, naturally you just only have so much bandwidth.
Right.
So how much of it is that, and how much of it is these? Probably the easiest answer is like, well, social media kind of fills
Yeah.
a
Thank
void.
you. Well, because I mean, I was just going to bro science this whole damn thing and say 1990. Come on. Like,
Yeah, what
Internet wasn't even there.
things
Yeah.
were really all about. I had a lot more friends. I had a lot more time. I had a lot more everything.
So technology,
Social
I think,
media.
technology,
For me, is the
particularly in
culprit.
social media's direction, like technology has enabled us to communicate globally, but I think that has prioritized more like flippant transactional communication than it has like this deep camaraderie, which is like what this study is looking at. It's like how many like true
Exactly.
friends do you have?
Exactly.
And like, you know, nowadays I might have thousands of Facebook friends, but all we do is like something. Like we don't have
First
this
of
like
all, are you still on Facebook?
Instagram.
Or are you just saying that?
No, I still have a Facebook. I still have Instagram. I don't really like use them, but like I still have the thousands of people on them, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, like I wonder if you ask someone a little younger, maybe like someone Jordan's age, like how many friends you have. You're like, well, I got 1,000 on Facebook. I have 1,500 on Instagram.
Yeah.
I have 6,000 followers on Twitter.
Well,
Is
the
that
fun-
what comes to mind? Nah, not so much.
I mean, the funny thing is like I've like
No, I don't think anyone
I've
thinks so.
acquired all these like friends in quotes, and I can literally walk you through each one of them and tell you how I met them, what the story is between us and everything. That they're not random people,
Right.
but they're not friends. You know, they're just like they're like acquaintances in life.
Yeah,
you know?
acquaintances. Yeah. But the study is looking at close friendship.
Yeah.
Correct.
So not just friend, close friend. What is close friend? Well, everyone's going to define that differently. And I think they did set some parameters for people when they were helping them answer the question. But of course, there's margin for error. There's room for error. But the point is, close friend is someone you count on, someone you talk to, someone you come to, someone you share with, someone you've had a moment or two of vulnerability with, someone you've experienced something unique with, someone you've traveled with. You know, these are the people you think of when you think of a close friend.
Yeah.
You're not just going to call anyone your
the
close friend.
2 a.m. call, I'm on the side of the road, flat
Yeah.
tire, like I need some help, or, you
Yeah,
know, like that kind
or-
of, you know,
I'm in jail.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I need
Or
some
who's in
bail
jail
money.
with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe who's sitting next to you is the better measure.
Exactly. Ride or dies.
So I part of the study, I was kind of like doing some readership on like analysis on this study, and someone said, and when we were talking about close friends, we're talking the opposite of loneliness, I think. And so I read someone said those who reported being lonelier had a greater chance of facing mental health issues, partaking in unsafe physical health behaviors, and coping with stress in negative ways. And so I was thinking about it, and I was like, man, if I didn't have like a sounding board, it just didn't exist to have other people
Yeah.
to say, hey, just real shit is going on. I need to just tell someone or whatever, or what the fuck should I do? Yeah, I could very easily see just go the off the deep end, right? Because
Right.
that is like maybe the more least resistant path potentially. So, I mean, this makes sense to me that, you know, you could go off fall off the wagon a little easier without close friends.
It's kind of like reminds me of like, you know, I've generally become pretty agnostic, but like, because I think it's very dependent on your career path about college, but more anti than pro for most people's situation. I think college is overrated and unnecessary. But the main thing that you cannot argue, like works wonders for, is social skills and social development of you as a person.
Oh my
like
God,
it's
my
mostly just
personal development from
friends
high
and
school
personal
through the
development.
end of college was
It's
insane.
staggering
Like,
who you become.
Way more valuable than the in-classroom
Yeah,
experience.
you're paying a lot of money to learn to become who you really
an adult.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah, to become an adult, to learn to build friends and all those types of things. And you can still accomplish that in like a trade school or whatever. Again, college is sort of another word for any environment where you're in a group of people in an intensive period and you're around your peers. But like we met, the three of us, in college, and we're still here. And what year the fuck did we graduate?
I don't know.
2000. Reluctant to
04?
say. Reluctant to
I
say.
think I'm not reluctant at all. I'm proud of it.
04,
But
bro?
you graduated high
I
school.
mean, that's yeah, 09.
Yeah.
So yeah,
1 year wonder. Got a
So,
PhD too.
you know. But I think that like it's an incredible time to develop that and to meet those people. And if you haven't done that, it can become more difficult, more challenging. But a lot of people, according to this study, meet their friends at work. That's the major number one place that they met their friends, their current close friends.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting. So then it tells me where you choose to work and the culture of that company is super important because most likely your close friends are going to be workplace friends.
And now think about how many people are entrepreneurs or solopreneurs or whatever. Like, I think the modern economy allows people to work from home. Like, you're losing that as well.
Yeah, so this is interesting. It was earlier in the day here, and people in the office like, so what's on the docket for the pod today? And I was telling them about this, and they were like, oh, that's interesting. I was reading something about how there isn't the third place anymore. And I was like, what do you mean? First place home, second place office. You know, third place is like a common area where people can just.
I think Starbucks was like, they wrote like a thesis on this.
Like they wanted to be the
wanted
third
to be
place.
This is a
third
thing?
place. Yeah.
Yeah, but
this drives me crazy.
but think about
I
it.
want a third place.
So
You know that I'm big on this.
So like in
I need this.
Britain, it was like the
pub.
pub. But
Yes.
like Starbucks wanted to harness that in the United States because we didn't have the pub culture.
No.
But either
But
way,
Starbucks has accomplished that in Japan, by the way. In Japan, Starbucks is the third place. It's really cool
But
to
even
see.
think about, forget the third place. How about the second place? Like we've collapsed one and
second
two.
place is gone. Yeah.
You know, like where it's more common to work from home, and that I think making friends at work is a great place to make
do we
friends.
need a
It's
country club membership?
I'm
Country
open.
Club Eric. Steven likes to talk about Country Club Eric.
I could see you living a
'Cause
country
I like to
club
play
life
tennis, you guys.
Yeah. I think we need something like that.
with a social lounge and like.
Yeah,
do you
reading
want to go
club
to
was
like
supposed to be
organized
that.
social events though?
Oh,
Maybe. Casual.
Reading club would be that.
I mean, if I could get in.
I wasn't gonna bring it
Hold
up.
on.
I wasn't gonna bring it up. Some of us didn't get
I
in.
email them once a week still.
David Hoffman got accepted immediately.
Yeah,
And
I just
then-
gotta send a picture with
and
more.
then-
I didn't put out enough ego in my application.
Maybe.
I tried to be too like I'm a nobody.
Steven didn't get in either.
Yeah.
I went the artist route.
Yeah. Well, that's the I'm not trying ego route.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I find it difficult to imagine what my life would be without close friends.
So I think it's very clear, more close friends, better, right?
Yeah.
But like imagine now, like, okay, so I've played this game. Like I moved to a brand new city in my adult life. I went to Regina, Saskatchewan. Okay.
I remember this.
The city that rhymes with fun. I went to Regina and I did have some like close friends who I knew there, but it was very hard for me. Like I was working, right? I was working 3 jobs there. It was kind of like my transition back into real life while I was traveling. So like I was really like work focused, but with my like buddies who were there, I met their buddies, but then, they were working too. So like we would just go like drinking on the weekends. And like I found that like I'd meet their buddies and like we'd go out and it didn't like nurture these like deep connections like we have. And I think it's like, because when you get older, you need to find some way to make friends that's like outside of drinking. Drinking is like it's an easy way to connect, but it's a very hard way to connect deeply. Like you need something else.
Yes.
You don't like there's no follow up when you connect over drinks. Like, and that's it.
Like for us, it's money and meaning. and politics and society and culture and all those things, but it kind of comes down to like money and meaning was like the root of so much conversation. We were either constantly discussing, the stock market and crypto,
Yeah.
or real estate, or we were asking questions like, how do you talk to your parents? What
Right.
are you going to do when you're 71?
And like that, and
these
the alcohol
meaningful,
is
deep questions.
the alcohol is just the lubricant to allow those things to flow. It's not the
Exactly.
purpose.
Exactly.
And when you're in a new city, by the way, like it's very like, I wonder how people do it, because how I would do it now is completely different. I would just go into my hobbies and I would like just find situational friends and hope that those sort of evolve into more.
Sure.
Yeah, like there's like a classic line about if you want to find love, like just do what you love, and then naturally that will like turn into something, hopefully. And I remember when like I originally reconnected with Steven, like I don't know, what was it, like 4 or 5 years ago? I was like walking down the street at a foreign affairs magazine in my hand, and I ran into him on the street. I was like, "Oh, what up, man? How are you?" And he's like, "You like politics?" I was like, Yeah, I read it all the time and think about it a lot. He's like, "Do you want to have coffee and talk about politics?" I was like, "Sure, man." He's like, "I usually show up at parties and like everyone's drinking and I'll just blurt out something of politics and everyone just stares at me blankly and walks away." He's like, "So it'd be really cool."
Sounds right.
If we
Sounds
could.
exactly right.
He's like,
usually there's a young woman being offended by some of Steven's some thing that Steven has said, but it's not even what he's saying. He's just asking her questions she's never been dared to be asked before,
Right.
And she's in shock and wants to kill him, and he's kind of enjoying it.
But he's also confused. Like, why are you offended?
He's genuinely wondering how she arrived at that opinion.
But anyway, like, I think Steve and I were like acquaintances, friends, like respected each other, knew of each other. But then once we found this, like, oh, you like to talk about this? Like, yeah, let's talk about this. And like that day we had coffee, I texted you guys. I was like, yo, let's go to dinner with my buddy Steven, just reconnected with him. Yeah. Let's all go to dinner. And, we just hit it off. So like, I like your comment about like, just dive into your hobbies. And that's the best way to hopefully they turn into relationships.
You're the
like
only guy who was walking down the street with a foreign affairs magazine
I remember
in
why.
years. That's actually incredible. I want to go back to something because I think we touched on it, but not enough. It's like there's a deep problem here in society if all these people think that they're getting, we talk about this meme, this idea of like getting more connection through social media only to be left more empty and connectionless. The data is showing more followers and friends online does not mean more close friends, and more close friends means more happiness about how many friends you have.
You could even make
like less of these is clearly a problem, and we know that there's a mental health epidemic. We know that people are more unhappy than they've ever been, in particular the younger generation. And I think it affects everyone, though. Even the older generation is more online than they ever were. They didn't know this shit was coming either. So I don't know. I'm beginning to become more and more and more concerned about this, but also I have some hope that I'll leave out while we kind of like have this quick discussion, because I think there's an anecdote also situation, a new theme, a new trend occurring that gives me a little bit of hope, but I'll wait.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think you can make the argument that the more you have, like, take like a mini influencer with like, I don't know, 20,000 followers, like you tend to have more screen time, and it's about creating content and then engaging with your audience, and you just end up in these like solo time sucks where, otherwise could be filled with friendship.
Well, I've never met a happy influencer.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you met any rich influencers?
Oh, many.
Okay. They're not happy?
No.
Wow.
No.
But when I follow them online,
I've met rich happy people, but I've never met rich happy influencers.
Do you think it's because they spend so much time with this like third friendship called their audience?
I think it's an addiction that a lot of people. Well, the word influencer is a very broad word, right?
Yeah.
I don't just mean like anyone who has a following, but the ones that like consistently content create posts and are obsessed with like the story level of shit that is required. Those are the unhappy ones in my experience. But like, I think that you look at a guy like Tim Ferriss, who we've been following forever, but he's this like very intentional human being, right, with everything that he does, and he intentionally doesn't want to be super engaged on social media, so he like almost unwillingly has these profiles, but I'm pretty sure it's not him posting. I'm pretty sure he's got 97 rules for when and how he's allowed to touch his phone and check it and things like that. So he'll like do it, but he's very intentional about not getting plugged in and sucked in and things like that. So
can we talk about online friends and then talk about your hope?
Yeah.
So there is this like new thing of, like you said, social media allows you to have a lot of online friends. Like we have them in our Discord.
I feel like I'm good friends with a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, like you feel like you maybe understand them a little bit. Like you could actually maybe even be vulnerable and have like a intimate discussion, and you find that like you have the same values and maybe you think the same way, and you find in your head like there's this topic, I want to go to this person who I've never met in person before, but like for this topic, I actually want to talk.
I literally
to
talk
them.
about taint tanning with this community. I mean, it's pretty vulnerable.
That's as vulnerable.
Well, like also like we often want to grab beers, the three of us, four of us, but then also we grab beers with our community members. We just grabbed beers with a member of our community last weekend.
Friday, yeah.
And
That was great.
Below grabbed beers with other members of the community on Friday. So like I think there is like, it's not just a negative, like just this tech.
And so, but I do wonder, is it like a bull trap in the sense of like, if you have these, let's say your life is full of these and like you get meaning from it, but if you're still missing that in real life close friend, is there something missing?
There's nuance here. I think social media is not the same as there's the social media of the feed and the following on TikTok consumption and Instagram consumption and Twitter consumption. And then there's what's going on in groups and group chats, DMs, and communities. So to me, Discord, and this ties into my hope. So and a lot of what a lot of people are writing about lately. So Discord is literally a community app. It is a community social media, but it's not social media in the sense that there's some endless
It's not all public.
feed.
Yeah.
It's not a feed that I just go through.
Right, you don't
content.
get benefit necessarily by posting in our Discord. Like you don't get more followers by posting our Discord.
You don't get that type of benefit. But if you engage and you cultivate real relationships, you get that benefit of genuine
you get the community
relationships.
kind of relationship, yeah.
And the shift that's occurring, so I see like a stark contrast and a shift occurring, and this is my hope. If you actually look at your Instagram feed, I don't know who you follow, but I can almost promise you that the majority of people that are posting are professional content creators. They're not you. Like, they're not us. They're not regular everyday people. It's the people that have made it their job to become an influencer or micro-influencer or content creator or whatever they want to call it. Instagram now, I read a great article this morning that was related to the friendship recession. And it's like most people, there's like an unwritten rule about what you can and you can't post to your Instagram. And there's all, if you look at like a really young person's Instagram these days, their Instagram is this. This is exactly what you'll find. It's a handful of actual posts on the page that are perfectly curated, but they haven't posted it all recently. It's just kind of there as like an overview of here's who I am. Yeah, I'm nailing it for Jordan right now. I'm nailing it because what is it? It's actually kind of like a dating profile page. I'm going to look you up. It's a great way to connect at the bar. It's like, what's your Instagram? I'd much rather get your Instagram handle than your phone number. So it's like easier to slide in. I also get, my brother talks to me about this stuff all the time. It's like, it's easier, it's lighter. It's like I get exposure to who you are, what you do, and you have this highlight reel on your profile. But then where the conversation and engagement is really happening is in the DMs and in group chats. And that might be on Instagram. But people do stories a little bit, but they're casual with their stories. They'll post there, but they won't post to their actual page. Okay? And the reason, and what's happening is because it's not cool and it's not safe to post to your profile. Because you can't post garbage. If you could just post garbage, like the way you can just tweet stuff to your actual profile and it was acceptable, then most people would. But because of these unwritten rules, people are not willing to post anymore. So the conversation has moved. And that's actually what also gives me hope is that people don't really seem to care anymore about posting and gaining followers unless their mission is to become an influencer, which is the number one, career choice of young people today. So yes, there's a lot of people that want that. Yes, there's a lot of people that want to be professional content creators.
But for everyone else
is like, I don't give a fuck. I don't want to be on social media. There's an anti-social media thing going on, and they're in group chats and discords and cultivating real, genuine relationships. This is my hope.
That's cool. I mean, I agree with you. Like, I don't follow a single influencer on Instagram. It's literally just my friends. But, it feels the same.
You don't follow a single athlete?
No.
Okay. Well, you're not normal. That's not, no, I mean that like literally.
No,
like,
I think,
not the normal.
I think I agree with you.
That's
but like,
not the normal.
even with, within just my friends, I can tell that the Instagram is still curated to like showcase their lifestyle as one that is sort of glamorous, like more glamorous than they would like
It's
literally
like a highlight
live.
reel,
Yes.
right? Like your resume.
Yeah.
Speak of the devil, Belo. I like this quote. Relationships are not a function of time, but rather vulnerability. I agree. You can like significantly
Deep,
advance a
fast.
relationship by be the first to be like, well, this part of my life sucks.
Yes.
You know?
Okay. So with that, I've like, you both have like kind of like identified in me a skill that I've curated over time, which is like an ability to connect with people, right? And for me, the way that I've been able to do this is by doing what Bilo does here. He's touching on something important, but like you need to like tiptoe this line. Like when you go vulnerable in a dynamic, like let's say you're just one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's like you need to play this role where like you're gauging the other person, where you can't go too vulnerable too soon. Otherwise, they're like, "What the hell? You're like this weirdo." But like if you can be like sort of like status quo with vulnerability to the 50-yard line, that to me is like the unlock for how to like sort of Napoleon Hill this shit and like how to win friends and influence people is like
Carnegie.
just be cool and be vulnerable to the 50 or 60 or to their 40-yard line to the point where they're like, "Oh my God, like you're so open," but not to the point where like, "Whoa, dude, like I don't even know you. Why are you so open?" You know, like that.
You naturally do this like combo of like a little self-deprecating humor here and there, but then like when it's right, just like, like I said, to that 40-yard line, and then maybe see
how they're feeling.
If I was going to put a framework on it, it's like it's about not only the intensity level of your 40-yard line, but it's like if you keep doing it, if you do it too frequently and they haven't reciprocated, that's where it gets weird.
Yeah, you got to.
So if you keep being vulnerable and they keep not reciprocating, so it's almost like give one, wait, not getting something back, maybe give another moment to show like this is cool, we can be vulnerable, and if they still don't, then you're just annoying to that person. That person's not ready for you.
So they're
not ready for vulnerability.
So
if
I have
they're
this
not going to
like
reciprocate it.
I agree. I have this framework for life. Okay, I have a framework for life in social dynamics, and it's this.
Episode
it's like
156, and you're now unleashing your framework.
It's basically this. It's like
Jesus.
everybody is in a high school dance or like middle school dance. Like a middle school dance where everyone's on the fucking sidelines. Guys and girls are on the sidelines. Everybody's on the sidelines.
You're bringing up a lot of memories right now.
And like everybody wants to find someone to dance with. Like that's the fucking point of being there. Like that's the point. And if you can like just be the one to be like, "Hey, you want to dance?" That's good. Somebody else wants to, but you don't want to be the one to like literally point at somebody and they're like, "I don't want to," and then you just keep pointing at them like, "No, let's dance, let's dance." Like you go to the 40 and be like, "Hey, you," and then they're like, "No," and then you just
Do you
like,
find that in business relationships and personal relationships, like across the board?
This is literally everything for me. Everything for me boils down to this, and it's like this is like the framework of society that I use for everything.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
It's distinct.
good.
It's memorable. I don't know how extendable it is.
No, it works 100% of the time.
Okay.
No, this is
120%
like
of the time.
Confucius level 2023.
Yeah.
They will be discussing this. Oh, it's so good.
All right. Let's see. Hookem says what Eric is describing is authenticity. Yeah, I mean, like if you're just truly yourself in that situation, and I don't know. It's a little bit of like,
disagree because like yes, I mean on the broad scale, yes, but like if you just go authentic level to the max, you know, like my authentic level was like I fucking picked my nose and then I fucking smelled the booger. Like no,
yeah,
like no,
or I'm
that's
nervous
not
and
fucking
scared.
cool, dude. Like you gotta moderate your authenticity too. Like you have to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think like this is the friendship recession. The reason bringing it up is just because like it's a theme of our friendship. I think it's a theme of this podcast, right? Like the coolest thing about this podcast is the community of friends that like we've brought together and hope to continue to grow. But you know, if we didn't grow anymore, I'd be just as happy, just based upon the community that we've grown. So I don't know. I think
One
like
of the number one reason people lose their friendships is moving away. And the second was like marriage and kids. So don't leave me.
I'll find you.
I will find you.
I'm staying in San Diego. You know, I used to dabble with the idea of leaving San Diego.
You want to go to Miami?
I'm staying in San Diego forever.
But
I'm sorry that I even teased such a thing.
Miami sucks.
I know it does, and I'm sorry that I even teased.
But there's
such a
the
thing.
best place on earth there.
Oh.
It's a prime number. I'll let you decide which
Christ,
prime
dude.
number.
I only go there with my wife.
Yeah. but anyway, we have joked about like, wouldn't it be cool if we could move to a less taxed state? But
course.
then it quickly comes to like, well, what makes the place you live in cool? Like, do you have these relationships that you can like, you know, rely on and have
The only
fun with?
Floridian I want to spend time with is Rectum.
I'd go to Tampa.
So
I think like
I don't want to be
the idea that network
Florida.
state works as long as you can just like go in unison. You know, like
In unison.
Yeah.
But part of the network stake is also meeting up in person from time to time, which we're going to do soon.
Mm.
We're going to do at a
Permissionless plug.
permissionless plug in Austin.
Only 2/4.
2/4 of us will be there. It'll be, what, September 11th or
It'll
13th?
only be 2/4 is good. I'm
we'll
just
see.
kidding. It'll be
We'll see.
great. I'm sad.
No, we'll bring the heat for you boys.
I hope
Yeah.
you guys
Can you
record
can you
some-
like bring a little Armand energy to the party?
I don't know.
Come on, you can do it.
I need to be authentic. I need to go to the 40-yard line. No, I mean, I'm excited to meet everyone in person and hang out with some of the people we met with in Eat Denver. Like, that was like one of the coolest times meeting, you know, people that you haven't met in person, but you've been chatting with, have some back and forth with. You don't know what you're going to get. And then you're like pleasantly surprised that everyone is like, you know, if they live in the city, you'd be
So
just as close
give
buddies
the
with them.
deets. September 12th.
Yeah, so we're going to do
September
something
12th, 5
September
or 6
12th.
p.m.
It's the Tuesday of the permissionless
In
event.
Austin.
We're going to do a little happy hour time. Emma, shout out to Emma, Paradox in the Discord. She's organizing our little event. We are closing the specifics.
At $7,000.
Yep.
You
The
can say
bar
that
is going to
now.
call $7
Yep,
grand.
$7,000.
It's-
Great whiskey bar.
Yeah, walking distance within the conference. And yeah, we'll have a little
Hell yeah.
friendship fest.
You're not good at capturing content, so I'm gonna need you to intentionally take pictures and videos that day.
Yeah, and like crypto people are inherently like,
Like
secretive. Like, can
I'm
somebody
gonna
like
need
take photos?
Some content, because like Mina's not gonna be there.
Yeah, Mina was the one. It's
So
like everybody gather around.
I
take a
feel
photo.
like we're fucked, and the whole thing's gonna be a black box of what happened.
yeah, it's just
I
going to be
need
my
it.
little memory bank.
No. We need. Oh, Jesus. Yes, he won't be there either. Yeah.
Nope.
Can you try that day? Can you take some photos?
Well, Steven's got it.
Steven's got it.
No,
Definitely.
Steven already forgot.
he's not gonna go.
God, can you tell how much we miss him? This is too much. We talked about it like 7 times already. I love it.
All right, boys. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap.
great.
Little cheers to friendship. I think that's what this last little bit was for.
Yeah.
And
the theme of this pod.
yeah, always.
Yeah, in many ways.
So everyone in the chat, we love you. Thank you for joining us live today. And hop in the Discord. We'll see you in the Discord. If you're not in, the links are at alfalfapod.com. What happens in Austin stays in Austin. Adam, are you going to be there? I hope so.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah. No pics. No video for you. Penalties for you two
bullshit.
for not being there. It is
If you punish me like
It is
this,
your penance.
It's unforgivable.
Boop boop.
No,
Yeah.
The down points.
unforgettable.
FOMO penance for you.
Unforgivable.
Okay.
All right.
All right, guys. Love you all. Thank you for joining.